Four Roses Small Batch Select. I once said that this bottle was one of the worst that I owned, but was that really true? Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, today I'm taking a look at Four Roses Small Batch Select once again. It's only been a few months, maybe even 2 months, since I reviewed this bottle, and I basically said, don't bother. It was the hottest thing ever. It made me cough constantly. I just didn't like it, couldn't get a lot of flavour out of it. It was just an absolute dismal experience. I love Four Roses, and the fact that this is one of their more premium offerings and then that I didn't like it, to be honest, was just a bit weird. And in the comments of that video, I had a load of people agreeing with me, saying, yep, I bought one, had the same experience, similar experience, don't like it, don't rate it. But a few people said, you're being an idiot, you shouldn't have reviewed that on opening, give it some time and it becomes fantastic. So, in true form, I'm gonna be fair and give it another go. Now, for those of you wondering, Tom, why do you often review freshly opened bottles? It's never at its best when it's like that. I know, I'm fully aware, but I do it, to be honest, to try and give as many bottles as possible a level playing field. I do occasionally review a bottle that I've opened for personal use. I've not bought it for this channel, and I think, you know what, actually this is better than I thought, or this is, more interesting than I thought, so I want to talk about it, and that does happen. But in general, it is freshly opened bottles that I review, and when I do that, I do it for two reasons. One is to make it fair. If everyone's got a fresh pour, then, well, that's the case. And yes, it might not be the best experience and the best example at that point in time, but I so often say, look, it's feeling a bit closed off, but give it a month or so, that bit will get better, I am sure. And more often than not, that is absolutely the case. So I do keep it in mind. And the other reason that I always review open bottles is because when someone is going out to buy a bottle and they're looking at that bottle, want a review of that bottle before they buy it, if they see my review of a bottle that's been open for 18 months and has got a quarter left in it, the experience when they open theirs is probably going to be pretty damn different. And what I'm trying to do is help people with their expectations when they first buy it. All whiskies change, so when you review it makes a big difference. But well, if I review it at the start, which is what that person's then likely going to go and experience, hey, at least we're on a level playing field in that term as well. So that's my reasoning. You can agree or disagree with it, but it's probably not going to change anytime soon. Anyway, the Four Roses Small Batch Select. You may have noticed that despite me saying this is one of the worst whiskies in my collection, a fairly hefty bit of it has gone out the top. Two reasons. One is I wanted to give this a fair chance, and I wanted it to be able to air out and become proper to do this video. In order to do that, we need to get rid of some whiskey, and well, I'm not in the business of throwing whiskey away very often. So I made old fashions with it, and I can tell you, if you have got a bottle of this and you don't like it and you just don't like it, it makes an absolutely wicked old fashioned. So there is a tip for you. So yeah, summer's gone out of it, it's been left, it's been sat, it's aerated, and now hopefully when we try it again, it's not so abrasive. I should say there is a big temperature difference from the last time I reviewed this. If you watch my previous whiskey video, which was the Springbank 10 6-month update, you'll know all about temperature problems I was having with that, and it just definitely wasn't the same whiskey in these climes. That said, this comes from the US, which is a damn sight hotter than Scotland, so I'm not expecting it to be ruined by the heat in the same way the Scotch potentially was. But just for forward and forethought, it is probably 15 to 20 degrees hotter in this room than it was last time I reviewed this, so it might make a difference. Fantastic cork pop. That is a chunky cork going on here. Right then, let's get a pour in. Now, I'm not going to lie, I do want to like it. I was really gutted that it was a pretty negative review last time out, and I do like Four Roses. It's beautiful, dark, kind of, it's got a bit of a rose gold tint to it. It's just proper straight gold. That it looks absolutely fantastic in the glass. Oh, okay. Well, the aroma hasn't bitten my head off. Oh no, tell a lie. Oh dear. To be fair to it, that's not everything. Quite often the aroma can be spiky and the actual experience much nicer, but it's still pokey, it's still punchy, still quite a bit of ethanol in it, but it definitely feels like it's probably calmed down a bit since last time. Nice bit of spice in there, maybe a bit of cornbread vibes, good amount of oak tannins, maybe a hint of maple syrup, that kind of thing. It's sweet but distinctly woody. It is oaky, this, definitely. Right then, let's get into it, shall we? Cheers. Good luck on the second try. I'm not coughing and wheezing, and that is a fantastic sign. Now, because this is a revisit, I've not gone through all of my normal, this is the mash bill, this is the ABV stuff. We probably should at least look at the ABV, and that is 52% ABV or 104 proof. So it's pokey. It's not the pokiest, but it's definitely pokey. The fact that it comes across a bit boozy, probably not a massive surprise, but you know what? I'm starting to get it. I still don't think it's one of the best. It's not flipped that harsh, but I can at least now sit here and appreciate it. You know what? I was wrong. We can say that definitively. It is not terrible, but boy, does this need to breathe. And we can argue whether that is a sign of a good product or not, because I think if they slapped a big label on there that said, open this up and let it sit before you try it, then I would be more forgiving with it, because they told you that's what's going to happen. It is wildly different. And I know all whiskies change. I talk about it all the time. But how much this has changed is actually pretty phenomenal. How much of that is down to it just being open? How much of that is down to the temperature change in the room? It's hard to say. This is not a scientific test. But what I can tell you is with those two things combined, it now really isn't bad at all. And with that said, what is this bourbon actually like then? Well, this, I'll be honest, is probably not the ideal time of year to be drinking it. It's very winter warmer, kind of, you know, autumnal, spicy, woody, like it's a campfire in November kind of dram, this one. It's super oaky, it's super spicy, it's super sweet. It's got a lot of natural flavours, I think is probably the way to describe it. It feels very woodland. I don't know if it's the temperature in here again, or just, you know, affecting my taste buds or something, or maybe they are still being blown out a little bit by the proof on this. It wouldn't normally be at 52% or 104 proof, but last time it really did stop me tasting a great deal. I'm still not picking up heaps and heaps of individual notes on it, but this does fill a space on my shelf that is otherwise pretty unoccupied, which is the oaky, the woody, the tannin, the raw, proper, I guess, yeah, natural tones, natural flavours bourbon. I've heard a lot of people say how much they don't like heavily oaked things, and I don't know that this necessarily comes under the super heavily oaked, but well, it's a damn sight oakier really than pretty much everything else I own, and for that reason, yeah, I think I'll let it stay around for a bit. But with all that said, is it worth it? Now, these come in just shy of 60 quid a bottle in the UK at the time of filming. It does vary a bit. I've seen it down at 55, I've seen it up at 75. It does fluctuate. Right now, just below 60. In terms of the quality that's in here, is it worth 60 quid? If you're willing to accept that you need to give it time and it's not going to be straight out the bat, I actually think it's not terrible. It's definitely not a bargain, but it's certainly not overpriced either. It's kind of just riding the line pretty much fairly. However, there are other options, and Wild Turkey's Rare Breed comes to mind. And in fact, let's break a dram out, shall we? So why the Rare Breed? Well, it's high ABV, it's high flavour, it's high intensity, and it's a similar price. Now, admittedly, it's a touch pricier. As I said, this coming in just shy of 60, this 65, but it's also a higher ABV. It's coming in at 58.4 ABV, which is 116.8. Is that right? I don't know if that's right. Oh, it is right. It says it right there on the bottle. Anyway, 116.8 proof, 58.4%. It's a big hitter at a very similar price point, and I just want to see whether, really what I'm trying to work out is it the environmental, is it me, is it the temperature that's making me think that this is nice but maybe not as good as some other similar products, or whether it actually is. So now then, the cork on this isn't as good, but that's not a reason not to buy something. So in comparison, and I'm not gonna give you too much because I feel like there's a whole another video to be done once it cools down about these two in a great amount of detail. But they're both pokey on the nose, I can tell you that much. The Rare Breed's just sweeter and savourier. It's got this kind of leather, beautiful leather note to it that I always go on about. I absolutely love it. See, the problem I think with the Four Roses here is that you put your nose in and it doesn't give you a lot back. It's a little bit oaky, it's a little bit sweet, and you go in looking for more, you take a bigger breath in, and all of a sudden it's burning the inside of your nostrils, which isn't great. But so yeah, it's definitely not winning on the aroma front. But anyway, let's give it a go. Cheers. It's hotter, it's nuttier, leather again. The leather tannins are beautiful. It's sweeter, much more kind of cake and bakery spice notes. It is just a bigger hitter. But with that said, in this heat, in this environment, the Rare Breed now seems a bit more pokey and a bit more violent than the Four Roses. So maybe that has chilled out a super amount. I'm torn on this one. The flavour is bigger, it's richer, and it's a bit more diverse out of the Rare Breed. The Four Roses Small Batch Select is a little bit more reserved, a little bit more, I don't want to say considered. I say that a lot, and it's not more considered because the flavour kind of symphony that you get out of the Rare Breed is absolutely phenomenal. But it's simpler and more raw, more natural, more woodsman-like. And for that reason alone, I do think it probably deserves a spot on the shelf. I think I can come back to this and use it as a reasonable comparison. But the truth at this point in time is, I still think it makes a better old-fashioned than it does just a sipping dram. And at nearly 60 quid a bottle, yeah, I'm not sure that's really what I want to be using. So it's a difficult one. I was wrong. It is better than I thought it was now it's been opened up, for sure. But it's still not absolutely blowing me away. So at some point in the future, when it cools down here and everything returns to normal, I'll get these two head to head to do a proper versus to see which one can win out for sure. But until then, that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you would be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.